Hey, it is your buddy, Peace and Harmony with you here today. Much love going out to all the beautiful empowered harmonizers. And we are going to zoom in and focus in on some really important and interesting, fascinating information. And that is by a great viewer question, and that is really to understand toxic projection, how it basically anesthetizes you and desensitizes you to your own sense of reality, your own perspective, your own truth. Really, it's a whole different energy change. And before we get started, I just want to give a huge shout out to those of you who have recently donated and commented on the channel. Thank you so much for your continued and ongoing support. We are back in the house with a new video. I apologize, it's been like a couple days, maybe even a week since I last posted. My video, the charger completely just fried out, so I could not even get video up and running. So I apologize, I've been without service. So we are back and at it. So thank you, and I apologize in my absence. I do have close to 2,000 videos. You can always research my previous videos here on the channel, and hopefully you'll find some relevant topics that will provide you new insight into some very difficult, confusing relationship dynamics. And so we really want to focus in and zoom in on today, basically with our new video. Hope you guys can see me okay. We are zooming in and focusing in to understand really the essence of toxic projection. What does this mean? How is this used as a manipulation tactic? How does it desensitize you? In other words, how does it make your senses numb? How does it sort of really create a fog, a fear, an obligation, and a guilt through projection? Meaning, really, let's dive in and understand whether that's at the hands of a covert narcissist, an overt narcissist, or even someone who's malignant, narcissistic, or psychopathic on the whole end of the spectrum. Let's understand really what toxic projection is and how it can become so toxic that it can become really difficult to emerge from this and have really a sense of woundedness that is you carry around with you that's so profound as a result of toxic projection. So projection is a tool or a psychoanalytic manipulative tool that I think was really first discovered and discussed by the father of psychoanalysis, Sigmund Freud. And so he really looked at the object of projection. So in other words, it is exactly that. It's projection of an image, a feeling, onto another sort of blank slate or another innocent victim, if you will, a bystander, and then attributing negative intentions, negative feelings, negative associations, and sort of annihilating them with a whole host of negative images, or really what I would consider false accusations, false assumptions, not being able to kind of without empathy. So in other words, it's a really true annihilation of your feelings and your perspective, and then turning around and ascribing the negative to you with which within themselves they hold. So it's taking a negative fault of their own, an insecurity, and because they are not able to process it and deal with it and own it and work through it and kind of come through the other side to a sense of security and not having to resort to this manipulative tool of projection, basically then they release it, they get a catharsis, they do, it's a feel-good thing for them to sort of do this wounding, this negative toxic projection. And it can be anything from statements, looks, looks at you, and false accusations I think are kind of like the number one basis where you can understand how you might have experienced toxic projection in your relationship. Ascribing negative intent where you have none. Calling you names when you haven't even had a chance to learn something. In other words, very dehumanizing treatment. things where they're annihilating your senses. In other words, they're putting so much anger, rage, guilt, and projection that is ascribed or really within them, and they're just sort of almost like an emotional vomiting of this onto you. And oftentimes they catch people off guard, or they're young, or they're in a relationship where they maybe really love this person or need this person, and so have a difficulty time sort of confronting them or standing up for themselves and being able to kind of breathe emotionally, that they then will ascribe this negative intent. And it's oftentimes very precise and very correlated to something that they do themselves. So in other words, I feel there's a very strong connection between what they're, what they're projecting onto and really what's an inadequacy or an insecurity to them. In other words, they can be highly dependent on somebody. And they are all over the place, very chaotic, very unorganized, and then they're projecting that onto you, even though you don't display this symptom. But they use the brainwashing and gaslighting to make you feel that this is a toxic or shameful flaw, that this is it's an inherent flaw within you, meaning that you can never ever redeem yourself from this. And so it's like a very heavy hitting, harsh feeling when they project this negative energy onto you. And so it can be anything from you don't know what's going on in the political realm, or whatever sort of mud that they're slinging or bad that they're slinging in your general direction. They are ascribing these faults unto you, which they themselves have as an insecurity, but because of their personality disorder, and they always need to save face and oftentimes appear as right. There's this really sort of righteousness, indignant righteousness with which this personality type has, where they always need to be in the right, and there is always a win-lose dichotomy. So they always have to have the win, and you are going to have the lose. And they're really sort of fight it to the bitter end. They'll be the one who yells louder, who comes at you with harsher looks, etc., etc. They're always going to try to have the upper hand and always go for the win. So they're looking to assign a loss to you that is then felt as toxic shame and an inherent flaw, meaning that no matter what you do, you can never resolve it. It's assigning this permanency, and what is oftentimes very asphyxiating, or what I feel is you become desensitized. In other words, you become numb to this because of this inherent, they're ascribing it as an inherent flaw within you, meaning no matter what you do, the very fiber of your being is shameful, there's something flawed, there's something that they are rejecting, there's something that they are disapproving, and that they are then the one who is always right. And so it's this sort of indignant shame that they're trying to thrust upon you. And so it's a projection, but oftentimes very precisely correlated to the very thing that they themselves have an issue with. In other words, they might say, well, don't talk so loud. Don't do this and this. Don't say this. You're going to make other people turn their heads, and this is private information. Yet they're the ones who are then, blaring out in public or outside, about you, your finances, your health, what you said and did. So they're not respecting your privacy. So oftentimes the projection is very correlated to something that they do themselves, and that they are then battling you even stronger. So you don't have the capability to be able to have a amicable or civil discussion. Their defense mechanisms is so strong that you can't even confront them. So then you have this avoidancy in this social anxiety that then becomes built in, rehearsed and rememorized within you. So you always feel this inherent shame, this toxic flaw. It's a toxic projection. So you feel, the dark days, you will never amount to anything. You're chronically unhappy. The energy, you feel very sluggish. You don't feel like striving anymore. You feel like you want to call it quits. You want to stay stuck in your house. You don't want to eat well. It's like all this really just builds up. It accumulates in the system. You really hold it in your body because oftentimes, you know, they'll come at you. You'll be very positive. You'll show them very positive pictures. And then the next thing they want to do is just send you propaganda or hate propaganda, hate speech, negative this, negative that. So they're trying to, you know, always sort of, you know, show you that you're in the wrong. So there's this very much a propensity that they want to have the win. They're always having the upper hand. This is the narcissistic problem, is that they always want a safe face and they need to dim others' light. And through a lack of empathy, then it can be very desensitizing, meaning you're really not in your senses anymore. You can't see things in the beauty for what it has. You can't feel things in the feel-good moments, the warm and fuzzy feelings. You can't really smell the flowers. You can't smell the roses. You can't smell the grill. You know, you can't really take in fresh air. You know, those things don't energize you anymore. You can't listen to positive things. You're not hearing the birds anymore. You know, you're just not feeling good. It becomes it dulls your senses. So this can be a result of projection. It's because they can't own the fact that they're sort of human in this way. They want to always come off as the one, the boss, the only, you know, the one and only who can have and hold this position. So everybody else is judged down. And so they will do this through projection in assigning guilt or inadequacy, disapproval is a big one, rejection. You will never be good enough. There's an inherent flaw. So there's a certainty with which the projection and the repetition that tends to result in the projection is saying that you know, and then that there's the confusion and the gaslighting and the brainwashing and the self-doubt because you don't even have a chance to put your own thoughts together. You can't put your senses together. You're not coherent inside. You're not able to manifest the positive things in your life, the relationships, the opportunities, the feelings, the smiles, being able to receive the positive relationships without being fearful because of the projection. And the fear, the toxic fear, oftentimes is because of this assigning of an inherent flaw. We're going to wrap it up here now as we're getting used to the new camera. I hope these videos do help. We're going to continue a little bit more to this rough ramping up again with a new video. It's your buddy, Peace and Harmony, with you here today. And I hope that these videos do help. Please share and please subscribe for more great tools, videos, discussion, and support.